Hey guys, it's Lohpally here with another video, and today we're going to be going over our new patch for the next patch coming up. I believe it is 12.2. Okay, yeah, it's going to be 12.2. So main things that we really want to talk about are a couple of champions. So first off is the Lulu changes, which basically means that the W is going to be on a longer cooldown. For the most part, this doesn't change her power level at all. She'll actually just be the same. This doesn't do anything to her. Her strength really is comes from her whole full kit and how well it does well against characters. Plus, it's really powerful with all the hyper carries. The other two changes that are really important in this one, though, is the adjustments to Janna and the direct buffs of Senna. So those are the ones that we're primarily going to talk about real quick, which is just Janna is going to have, a faster Q landing. The W is going to have a longer range and last longer, but it's going to have a longer cooldown and do, a bit more damage, but, less damage in general because the cooldown will be a lot longer. And then they're making the E shield a lot stronger. So they're making it, shield for a lot more. It decays. It takes a lot longer to start decaying. Plus, also, it's going to be a way shorter cooldown, as you can see, all the way down to 9. And they're also making the ulti tick rate heal, so she's just going to have a lot more healing and control, but they're really trying to push power back into the shield. I think in general, though, this won't really make her that much stronger because the only characters she's really strong with are, super 80, 80 reliant characters, since her shield only gives AD, so I'm not really convinced this, solves a lot of her problems. Plus, my biggest complaint about her is she dies too easily, and her ulti, it doesn't really stop a lot of assassins because they usually build the Banshee's Veil effect. Yeah, you'll definitely see her in your games. I just don't think that she'll be that strong. And we'll go over the tier list pretty quickly after we talk about the last change, which is going to be Senna. So Senna basically lost Glacial Augment when it got changed from her auto attack. So now they are going to make it so that your Q now applies a slow and scales with the bonus AD that you have. So this is actually a really huge buff for both AD carry Senna, but also support Senna. So really, really big buffs in that sense. So now we'll jump into our tier list. So pretty much, just to kind of contextualize, the tier list is built for you as the viewer who's maybe, not quite sure what you want to play, what characters should you pick up, maybe you've taken a break, or maybe you're just looking to switch over and play. This is not a competitive tier list, it's for solo queue mostly. So S plus pretty much means that they're the cream of the crop. S is going to be, still really strong, especially if you play them reasonably well. A is more of specialty, so if you play them well or they're picked into, good matchups, then they'll definitely still be strong, but not as strong as a generic S counter, an S pick. So usually the A tier is more reserved for either you're running combos with people or you are or you are counter picking something. B tier are characters that you can play and maybe your teammates won't tell you you're trolling / want to leave the game, but I wouldn't particularly recommend them. And then anything C and D, I recommend pretty much not playing at all. Moving into it is going to be our S plus tier, which is just going to be Lulu and Lux. So, we saw nerfs to Lulu. Doesn't really matter at all. Caitlyn is pretty much the premium AD carry, so, Caitlyn Lux is basically the best combo in the game right now, so Lux just comes in at number 1, and also because of the fact that there's no TPs anymore, so you're not getting TP'd in as much, so it's significantly harder for you to get killed over and over again while playing aggressively, so I recommend playing Lux a lot. She's one of my most played characters, and Lulu is really great too because if you can just get her through laning phase, her healing and toolkit pretty much guarantees that you'll have a hyper carry, especially at 1 to 2 items. And your utility is really flexible because of the fact that you can use the ulti when people jump in. Plus, her ulti is actually a version of true healing because it gives bonus health, which goes through healing reduction. And she's not dependent on items at all, which makes her really, really potent in that sense. And since she has a lot of CC and it's all point and click, relatively easy to play. Plus, if you play her well, then you can actually crush lanes in a lot of cases. So moving over to our S, mostly sustained characters for the first 3. So characters that are enchanters that are more sustain oriented. So they're not nearly as strong just because, if you do get behind, people build healing reduction, it can be a little bit rough. Plus their laning phase is just kind of weaker and they don't have tools to protect themselves in the early stages. But if you can get through the laning phase, man, Moonstone on these characters, they're insanely powerful. And for the most part, they're not too hard or difficult to play. And as long as you're grouped up in team fighting and team deathball, you'll be in really great shape playing these characters. Plus, Soraka has the global ultimate, so that's also like a kind of a plus in that sense. So moving over to the other ones, is going to be Senna. Senna does really well into enchanters in most cases. So really what was holding her back was the fact that she couldn't farm souls, play aggressively, etc. because most people were just TPing on her whenever she played aggro or there were lots of melee champions. Well, now there isn't. So now Senna, especially with the buffs, comes in the S tier for sure. And then Karma, as we said, kind of as I said before, Caitlyn is a really high premium pick. Caitlyn Karma, super powerful. And honestly, lane bullies in general are just good. So Karma is a pretty potent character right now, even though her, out of laning phase and as you get into team fights is a little bit weaker. Her laning phase is so powerful that it still pushes her into the S. What do you build on Karma? You're just going to go Shurelya's pretty much every game. Moonstone on these two characters. Shurelya's on this character. Shurelya's on Lulu. You'll probably build AP on this character. And then coming in as my last S tier is going to actually be Pike, which probably surprises people since, I've kind of gone over and said, hey, I think enchanters are really good. Long-range characters are really good. I think Pike actually counters basically all of the characters besides Lulu. One good hook and you can usually guarantee kills, and it's really easy to reset off of them and chain kill them. Obviously, one drawback is this character doesn't get ahead enough. You do fall off a cliff later, but I think that Pike actually does incredibly well in all these matchups right now and can snowball. So I put him in the S, but he's kind of between S and A tier, I would definitely say, just because of the fact that, like I said before, if you don't get super far ahead, you can run into problems. This is with the Lulu nerf. The Lulu nerf doesn't do anything to her. It has zero impact on her whatsoever. Once you build Shurelya's, you should never use your W to, buff up your teammate in most cases. And so you just W whoever comes in at the start, and the cooldown on that doesn't really matter that much. So then after that, we just kind of have other lane busters, I like to call them. Specialty characters that do well in reasonable lanes. So Zyra, Brand, they're pretty good in laning phase. Nami can sustain through, poke in that sense, so she can get through laning phase pretty reasonably well. Same with Yumi. I've also seen people be pretty successful with Thresh and Rakan. These are characters that go up exponentially in level, in power when you move around the map a lot or you're just really proficient with the characters. So that's kind of what we're looking at in that sense. I still think Leona is good because she's still reasonably easy to play, but you do run into problems where people take cleanse and it's a lot harder to score kills. I think Leona's power level goes up a bit when you're in an elo where people don't take cleanse. But overall, not a fan of playing too many tanks, as you can kind of see most of the highest tier characters, even the playmaking characters, so Pike, Thresh, Rakan, are almost all characters that either can do it from range or can jump out. And then after that, champions like Xerath are also really great at poking just because of out of range. One problem I have with Xerath, though, is it's really easy to chain feed on him. Plus, he doesn't have a lot of killing power, so his poke is really potent. But it's a lot harder to kill people than when you're playing Lux and you just hit a snare and then boom, boom, you blow them up with your whole combo. After that, you kind of see as we get into the B tier, it's mostly just playmakers or weaker versions of the AP character archetypes that we've already seen. So a lot of the tanks right now, in my opinion, are not really that great. I wouldn't personally recommend playing them in most cases, and you have to either really like the character or roaming a lot. And even then, you could roam on these characters and it's still sufficient. And then after that, I feel like in the C category and D category, these are characters that you probably just shouldn't lock in, regardless of whether or not you like playing them or think think you can play them in that certain circumstance, just because their stats are just bad. And I think stats actually really matter a lot right now because there's a lot of constant fighting, and your character needs to actually be able to either tank a lot of damage, have a lot of lockdown, or do a lot of damage. And I feel like a lot of these characters just don't fall into any of those categories. So that's kind of the danger zone. So pretty much anything under B, I wouldn't personally recommend. The A, S, and the S plus are going to be definitely your primos. But you still can play B. I personally wouldn't recommend it in most cases. But yeah, that pretty much covers it. So maybe tell me guys what characters you're looking forward to playing in the next patch, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment in the section below, and hit that bell and whistle. I'll see you next time. Peace.